Hi,
So,
TJ.
hello, Bob.
How
Hello,
are
Kate.
you?
I am doing well. I know I have a very short, limited time, but I have to start with a funny story that I tell people whenever they're like, oh, have you ever met so and so or so and so? I always tell people the very first time I met Bob, I made a complete jerk out of myself. And I guarantee you don't remember this, but when it was the Cars 3 junket,
Okay.
I was coming in the room, and I crack up about this all the time too. And I totally tripped over the leg of a whiteboard and essentially landed on a table right in front of Bob. And and he just looks at me and he goes, "Well, that's quite the entrance."
Oh, did I help you up at least?
Well,
Oh,
no, no, no. You were seated up front. I was okay because I essentially landed into the table, but
yeah.
it is one of these things that's just like, the guy that has so much physical comedy attributed to his writing style. I couldn't have found a better way to
I was thinking, how can I use that somehow? That was a great.
so
I actually purposely slipped on a banana peel when Frank Oz showed up and almost broke my back just to be
Oh,
silly,
like for
And
real.
yes, Frank Oz visited Pixar, and Pete Docter said, "This is our funny guy, Bob Peterson." I said, "I'm not funny," and Frank Oz said, "Do something funny." And I was eating a banana, I dropped it and slipped on it, and literally almost went home to the hospital after that.
Oh my gosh. Well, as much as I want to talk gags and all those things, and we'll get into some of those here. Thank you for letting me divulge into that little off story there. But
Nice.
okay, so talk about the intro to Doug Days. So it was so great to see this perfectly wrapped up package of getting right back into the story. We see them selling the spirit of adventure. We see them looking for houses, finding the house, putting the nameplate on there. As simple as that might seem, I would guess it probably wasn't like, how are we going to get back into this world? How did that all develop? And how did you guys determine that that was what needed to be shown for that intro?
Well, we debated a lot about a lot of things, like maybe going back in time and watching them leave the Tepui, and then it just felt like, well, let's just get right to it. Then the next debate was whether we should sell or rent the Spirit of Adventure. I was in the rental crowd wanting it to be rented, and but the thought is, if we ever want to get it back for anything else, we can. But really, all it was getting us back in that world. And like, I'm a big fan of like the beginning of Bambi, where all we're doing is trucking through the forest, preparing people for that world. And I just wanted to get people used to Doug and Carl again. The relationship is fun, and then introduce something new. That Carl is a little bit of a woodworker and created a whirligig, and part of it also was to connect back to Up, with the music being basically a melody from Up, and Kevin the bird shows up, and the house with the balloons. I just wanted to make sure the audience felt like, okay, we are paying homage to this movie and want to try to stay on that track.
That is, I mean, it was such a good, simple 30 seconds to set the stage to get everybody not only right back in the mental state, but to understand what happened from there.
Yes.
So I want to talk about the music, since you had mentioned, kind of some of the music there. You had Kim, you had mentioned during the presentation that Andrea Detzman was involved with this, which obviously she has a lot of connection with Michael Giacchino, of course.
yeah.
But then it was also Curtis Green, if I remember properly,
Oh,
that was
yes, yes.
also involved. So
Uh-huh.
just talk a little bit more about the music. I thought it was just so wonderful how it was not exactly the same. It still harkened back to that, but it had this new lightness and airiness and jazziness to it that also said, well, this is a new adventure for Carl and Doug. So just talk a little bit more about the music process, how Andrea and Curtis came into this.
So Michael Giacchino, friend of Pixar, all of us here at the studio remain very close to him. And he has this amazing team of collaborators, Andrea being one of them. And so when this series started moving forward, we instantly went to him to make him aware of it, not thinking for a million years that, he would be able to actually score something for us. He has so many amazing
Projects. Yeah.
So he suggested Andrea. And so we met with her and Bob. I know I'm sure you remember this as well, but we basically had a kickoff where we were like, we want a little bit of up so that everyone remembers, but we want these also to be their own thing. And then we also want each of the 5 to have a different sort of tonality, a different sort of theme.
Yeah.
Go. So it's a tall order. And the way she wove things in and out, and she called on Curtis as well to bring in some different writing, composing of some of the score. And I just think she did an amazing job, both of them.
I love that we hit the overblown emotions of Doug in these. It's like the smallest thing to us would be huge. Someone's trying to steal my sandwich, and the music went along with that. And that's, I think, when it really clicked in, as well as paying homage backwards toward Up.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that really stood out for me when watching these as well was just how fantastic the animation was. There's so many subtle things. We've seen the way that Carl interacts with his glasses when he kind of pushes them up when he wipes the side of his nose and how they bump up. But I love just the extra subtle touches of, I can't remember what episode it was. I think it might have been the squirrel episode where Carl kind of moves Doug's ear over. He pushes it up and over.
When he's petting him at the end, yeah.
Yes. It's just, there's so much subtlety to this. The whole series was literally like just a warm hug, the whole time. And I love all the comedic stuff that, you've mentioned it a couple times, Bob, about how you say, it's like Bambi, or you talked during the press event, somebody brought up, some of the old Mickey cartoons, and you brought up Pluto. There is so much classic feel to this. That joke where the squirrel is in the mouth, and again, I know that was already discussed. I literally have not laughed that hard in a long time. And it made me feel like I'm watching a classic Disney tune.
Yeah.
So is that just your sensibility, or how do you build this classic, just hilarious humor into it?
Well, I mean, luckily I did a lot of writing on Up and sort of, thought through some fun stuff for that, but it all grows out of Carl. It's all got to be character based.
Yeah.
Can't do just a joke for a joke's sake. You've got to make it that someone lifts an eyebrow and you laugh because that person's personality. And so Carl's fairly realistic. We want you to think about your grandpa, the way he's walking, and Doug is fairly realistic, but also there's all this cartoony part to it. Yeah. And the squirrel is so quick that we felt like we could take a little bit more license with how stylized it was. But I gotta say, as a director, you just set up a sandbox for people to play in. And the animators are wizards these days. Yeah. They're so good. And sometimes it's better for me to just let it go. Like one of the animators came up with that idea of the ear. It wasn't me. And then we all look at each other. Should we do it? That's really good. Should we do it? And things, when we decided to send Doug in the dream up toward the constellation of toys and all that stuff, and he's chewing on that sun, the animator did one that I literally fell out of my chair with the and he then polished it to a place where somehow it was too perfect. And I just said, no, you got to go back to where it was. So it's just keeping your radar up for funny little pluses. And I love timing. I love the timings of the old shorts. And so I like when there's a rhythm to them, which you almost could drum out some of the rhythms and things like that. And I like holding things for a long time to build tension. And like Carl coming down the steps and up, I was a big proponent of taking our time.
Oh, absolutely.
As long as we could go. And when everything's just too quick all the time, you don't feel the texture, and sometimes it's just not as funny,
100%. Well, I got the digital hook off from the side, so I gotta roll for now. But I appreciate you guys letting me ask a couple questions and then also just gushing for a couple minutes. Cannot wait for the world to see Doug Days coming up here. And September 1st is going to be a big celebration over here. I cannot wait to show them to my son as well. He's going to eat them up. So thank you both so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, TJ. I'm sure we'll talk again.
You bet.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.